I've been working hard transcribing the next part of McCoy Tyner's solo on 11383. From the new John Coltrane release. The second half of the solo has been more difficult than the first half to transcribe, but I'm pretty confident that I've gotten it pretty close, if not everything just right. My husband was asking me what this solo is like. He was like, "What's it sound like?" And I said, "It just sounds like pure McCoy Tyner." You'll see what I mean. Come on over here to the piano and let's look at all the cool stuff that he does. McCoy Tyner took 6 choruses on this solo, and in my first video, if you haven't seen it yet, you better go back and watch it. I named it Anticipatory Pentatonics because there was this concept that was just happening all the way through his solo, where if McCoy knew that a certain chord was coming up in the blues, he would anticipate it by half step above playing pentatonic or sometimes major scale. Now that kind of thing still happens a little bit in the second half of his solo, but he also brings in whole other ideas that it's going to be really fun to talk about. So here's where we pick up. He's come around from the third chorus using this idea of fourths, and we're going to see it happen again. So this is from the E flat section, like the 5th bar of the third chorus. This idea right here, using fourths as a launching pad, is something that you hear and then you know it's McCoy Tyner. So da ba ba da ba ba. That's just a really McCoy kind of sound. And he's going to bring that back in the 4th chorus. We'll see it in just a second. We've already talked about all of this. I'm just giving you some context. And here we go with the 4th chorus. Nothing so special there, just a nice little motif. He leaves a little space, but then here he kind of moves out of the tonal center a little bit. We've got B flat still happening, but he moves up to these notes. So it's almost like a blues scale idea. He almost went. That's what I would have expected, but instead of playing those notes on like the blues scale, he raises that F to an F sharp and the B flat to a B. So, and that's the idea that we've been talking about, so that he's approaching from this sharp key before we go down to E flat. And here it is again. This is what I was telling you he had just done. Remember, he went and landed on that one. This time, I don't know if it's a slip of the thumb. It might be. If it was a slip of the thumb and a mistake, it's a really, really cool mistake. So instead of this being the 4th, right, maybe he just, I don't know. Either way, it's cool. It's a sharp 5 on the E flat chord, or it would be the 6, and either way is cool. But it's the same exact thing he did before. I mean, pretty much. So that's pretty characteristic of just solid, classic McCoy Tyner. Cool, he's just repeating his little, well, I mean, it comes from up above, doesn't it? So, ba-ba-da, and then here, ba-bo-da, ba-bo-da. That's like a little just motif that he's bringing back, which is, it's really cool when people remember what they've already played and they remember to do it again a couple more times. Here we go to the C minor section. And this, I think, is just like a whimsical little passage. Like that. It's a nice little thing to practice and get into your fingers. But it's not overly special, though. I think it sounds awesome, though. We turn the page and he does the exact same thing that we've already seen twice. He launches himself. The last time he did it, it was like that. This time it's just a little bit different. And I don't know if he remembered that he had already done that or if it was just a habit for him to get started that way. But I like to think that it's a little of both. Why not? And at this point, McCoy starts using a lot of chordal voicings. So I didn't transcribe those yet. In the next chorus, I've transcribed everything. But for here, I'll just give you some ideas of what I think you could do with your left hand to kind of sound like McCoy Tyner. That's cool right there. Those are fourths, but a half step down from where you were instead of being like this. Now we're a half step down. So here we've got, again, this sharp key happening before we go to the E flat 7. So again, kind of anticipatory pentatonics. And now we're in the E flat bar. And here again, we're anticipating the B flat chord coming up with B pentatonic. And then that's a whole tone scale. And then I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of a fourths idea to play like that. And then over the C minor bar, he raises everything so that instead of thinking in C minor, he's thinking in C sharp minor. So maybe, you imagine James Garrison giving the C down here, but he might not even be doing that. I think as soon as the piano player starts to enter like a fourth or fifth chorus, and you know that the piano player's name is McCoy Tyner, you're going to stop playing solid blues changes, and you're just going to play kind of vampy, pedally, low rumbly things that anything will work over, because he can't predict, what realm or stratosphere McCoy is going to launch us in. So I think, he probably, instead of going to C minor right here, just played some Fs. I don't have time to go look and check that out, but, we'll see. So if he does that, McCoy, maybe he can do this kind of thing to kind of stay in, these are nice chords to be like a C sharp minor sound. And then back to that with your left hand. And then maybe because this all sounds much more like the blues, right? And much more like B flat. Then here he goes. This is the classic McCoy stuff that this video is going to be about. So now we're no longer talking about normal kind of B flat blues, because what McCoy is going to do is to introduce this sound that he loves, and we hear it in numerous recordings of McCoy Tyner, where he makes, I call it a B flat minor 11 sound. And what it is, these can be separated so that they're fourths, right? If you took the B flat and put it on the bottom instead of here in the middle, we put it down here, and we take the E flat and we put it here, then we've got a stack of fourths. But he plays them as close together as possible, and then we've got this. This is kind of like a melody line that it's almost like a pedal, but on the top. This chord was kind of hard for me to name, and then he uses his left hand to kind of dance on that chord for a second, and then he comes back, and now he's got all these four notes again, and we've got these notes with the right hand. So I really battled with what to call this chord, but I hear it as an A flat minor sound, because he's going back and forth between B flat minor to that sound. Doesn't that sound right? So even though I'm sure James Garrison didn't, go down with him, he probably just held on to the B flat for dear life. And so it's this note to this note that makes the big change. So, we can think of this is the root, this is the 9, this is the 11, this is the flat 7, this is the flat 3, and this is a 6. So it's like an A flat minor 11 chord with a 6. I think that's probably about right. I almost thought about calling it some kind of an E flat quartal voicing, because all of these notes all the way up to here are in the chord. It's like a 5-note quartal voicing, but we do have that F on top, which is a tritone right there, and it kind of throws things out of whack from that perspective. So I like it. But then, okay, so that's over what would normally be just B flat 7 chords. pretty much in the blues, you know. And then this all is still B flat. But what he does is, you know how before he was messing around with the anticipatory pentatonic that was coming up for the next chord. So if we're talking about B flat, and we are, he's not anticipating that it's B flat now. He's using this sound from the A pentatonic scale while he's playing over the B flat chord. So it's not anticipating it, it's just landing right on top of it. So it's a weird, really cool sound. So for at the beginning, I call it an A add 2, right? Like that. And then this one I'm calling an A6-9 sharp 11. Now, we do need to remember that we're still playing over a B flat 7 chord, and it is the third bar of the blues. It can get away from you if you're not careful. So every once in a while, I'll plunk a bass note down here so that you keep up just overall sound-wise. This is nice here. So this is kind of a little melody. Ba, ba, da, da, da. But right here, we're back to B flat. So for a second, he went away. Back to B flat. This is just a very, very normal B flat 7 voicing that we would use. And then he does another very normal voicing because we're going to the E flat chord. So for a second, this is just the 3rd and 7 of E flat with the sharp 9 and the 5. So it kind of just puts us in that realm of now we're in the 4 chord, but he doesn't stay there. He goes back to the B flat 11 sus sound, which is just really nice over E flat. So this sound that we had before, it sounds good over B flat. It also sounds good over E flat. So he's here. This is a nice 4th with a 6th on the top. And then he does the same kind of thing. He goes to the A flat minor 11 chord again with the 6. So same idea. And he changes the melody note. And then he does the same exact thing. We're back to a B flat chord, and he's gonna go to the A idea again. So again, I call it A add 2. Doesn't that sound so nice? So there's your B flat, and then you've got a tritone away from B flat on the bottom here. It's such a great voicing. Moves it up a whole step basically. So this is still, I just still call this like an A add 2, but now we actually have the 6. I suppose you can also think of it as like a B add 2, right? So A add 2, B add 2, and then he's right back to it with his 4ths and the B flat minor sus sound. And then he does the same thing he did before, just a normal B flat 13 kind of voicing. And then he does this one, and this is over what should be the C minor chord, but I think it's probably like an F sound for the last 4 bars of this blues. So this is an anticipatory idea again by half step, right? So we've got the E9 that's gonna be, you're gonna feel it as an F chord. You kind of can, right? Except for, I mean, this is the major 7 of F, but this is the flat 9, this is the sharp 11, this is the sharp 9. So you've got these sounds that normally would be kind of in an F kind of chord, but with this E, it brings you to E, you know, and out of F. And then he holds it for 3 counts, and then raises it just 1 note. So now we've got solid 4ths. I'm just going to call that an F sharp quartal 4. I think I borrow that from Rick Beato, or F sharp quartal. That's Q-U-A-R-T-A-L. And then we hop back up to the A flat minor 7 sound, but over F now. And then we've got this thick guy. I'm calling this F sharp 9 with a major 6th, like a 6th, and also the major 7, right? So it's a great sounding chord over F sharp, but over F, it's an even greater sounding chord. Wow, isn't that rich? It's crazy rich. And then he just does this little guy. Oh, this is my favorite part actually, because we're back to B flat, and he knows it's coming. So you can hear the B flat coming, but then he doesn't do it. Instead, he goes a tritone away. And I call it an E Lydian chord. Oh man, it's so beautiful. And then he just does like a F altered sound and then back to a B flat normal voicing that you would do on a B flat chord, B flat 7 chord for the blues. So, I mean, you know, the dude has these ideas in his head, and it just kind of blows my mind that he keeps track of them so nicely. He knows that these sounds from the B flat minor 11, right, they're so beautiful. He knows that they work over all of that blues sound, right? He can just change it from being to. So nice. And we've got that A flat minor sound that works. And then back to B flat, but we've got, right? Oh, the A add 2. I mean, it's not even just an A, which is a pretty normal thing to do over a B flat chord, because it does like this, right? It resolves. But he's even got, it's not enough that he just has these 3 notes. He throws in the 9, which is just a half step above B flat. So that's quite a clash. I could talk about it all day, you guys. So beautiful. Aren't those nice? I mean, these are fourth sounds as well, right? If you were to take these 2 notes and put them on top, but he puts them this way, and then same with these, they're just raised a whole step. And then he's back to the B flat minor sound. Oh. I'm so glad that this recording came to light. It's just a pleasure to have transcribed it and to hear these wonderful, super hip, rich, dense, complicated sounds and be able to talk to you guys about them. I hope you can go to your own piano and, you know, try these things out. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I didn't talk a ton about those last. This is kind of a common. It's like a classical device. I'm not sure which one it is. I can't remember anymore. It's like a G flat major chord that resolves to a B flat minor chord. So he uses that idea, except it's like a drop 2 voicing, and then here, and then instead of just making it like you would want to for a B flat chord, he does not do that. Those two, just in and of themselves, are sad, aren't they? By themselves. But then you add that one. I think it's my favorite part of the whole solo. I kind of wish he would have just stayed on it and let it ring out through the end of his solo instead of, playing just a couple more comping voicings. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and talking more in depth about this beautiful solo on Untitled 11383 from McCoy Tyner. Be sure to visit my website. I've got lots of great materials for you there. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.